Welcome everyone to the MAC. We appreciate you getting out on such a rainy afternoon, drizzly out there. But it gives you something to do to come over here and get informed about the candidates before you cast your vote. The forum is put on by the MAC, and we're a volunteer agency, a volunteer group who runs the MAC. And it does cost some to put this on, so if you'd like to make any donations to help defer the costs, we'd appreciate that. We have donation boxes in the lobby. We also have our Venmo QR code if you want to do that. And we have credit cards that we can take, as well as cash and everything else, checks, chickens, ducks, whatever you got. I hope this is going to be informative to you about the candidates. It is really important that we get informed about all candidates on local level and national level. And next weekend, next Sunday, we're having a meet and greet here for the candidates for state offices and we hope for federal offices. We're not sure if our senatorial and House of Representative candidates will be here. We've heard from some of them, but not all of them, but we hope they will all show up and give you a chance to talk with them also. So without further ado, I'll introduce Greg Glover, our moderator for today, and we really do appreciate him coming and doing this for us. He's been here several times and does a wonderful job. Oh, one other thing I need to mention, Snowda Hendricks is the one that puts this all together. She puts a lot of time and effort into it, and she's really done a wonderful job. So thank you, appreciate you coming.
Thank you all for braving the elements today. It's turning a little bit nasty out there, but we appreciate you being in here in the warm confines and appreciating the way that government works in your town. Let's bring all the candidates out if we can and get them to go ahead and sit down. There's a hush backstage. Let's come on out and sit down, guys. How about a hand for all the candidates as they come find their seats? We'll put a few rules out while they are getting seated there. Once we do get started with the debate, we're going to ask you to basically sit on your hands and be a captive audience. No clapping, cheering, but no jeering either. Save all that for the end. Also, once we get started, if you would take your communications device, be that a cell phone or whatever you have in your pocket, and make sure that's either muted or on vibrate or off, that would be great for everyone. Also, at the front of the auditorium there, the entrance there, we have a representative from the group Caleb, Chattanoogan's in Action for Love, Equality, and Benevolence, and they are signing people up to vote. So if you've been putting that off, you can do it here today. If there's someone that you know who hasn't made that move to register to vote, send them a text before you turn your phone off and say, come over to the MAC. We have someone here who could make it happen today. It's Alondra. She's at the front. She's with Caleb, and she's signing people up to vote. As we get started, we'll introduce the candidates one at a time and give them a couple of minutes for an opening statement if you'd like. And when they do that, feel free to give them a hoot and a holler if that's who you like, and then we'll turn it off once the debate starts. We'll run through some questions that have been submitted online and curated here for the debate today. And if there's time at the end, we have about 2 hours to go through here. We will take some questions that have been submitted by you on the way in out front. That's only if time allows there. I think I've gotten all of the announcements in. You know, you're invited, if you can believe it, October is next week. So a week from today is October 6th. I hope you saw this outside. You're invited right back here to meet the candidates. We're talking federal, state, and local right here, same time, 2 to 4, Sunday, October 6th. You can meet your candidates and talk with them before Election Day. That's going on right here next week. So let's get to our program here. We've got, once we get started, we'll have 2 minutes to answer questions, 1 minute for rebuttal if it's needed. We're going to start with Mr. Eddie Smith. Mr. Smith, if you have an opening statement, you have 2 minutes. Mr. Eddie Smith.
Thank you. Do I come here?
Just right there. Right there is fine.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Again, my name is Eddie Smith. Thank you all for coming out on this wonderful weather day. Been a resident here combined, first time 2 years, and then we moved to Atlanta for a wonderful 7 years, and then we've returned for the last 16. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful run. Raised our children. Now we've got a granddaughter. Unfortunately, she just moved to Jackson or south of Jackson, Tennessee, but Our son, daughter went to school in the Chattanooga area, and so it's been incredible. Served on the Planning Commission for the better part of the last decade. It's given an amazing insight. Was chairman, currently vice chairman, Navy veteran. That's how we got through school, so that was an interesting run and a way to go. But no, really thrilled to be here. Would love to continue to serve the residents and see if we can't shore some things up and create some engagement and come out on the other end. So thank you. Thank you.
That's Mr. Eddie Smith. Next, Rufus Marie.
Thank you. Rufus Marie, Army veteran, served in Iraq, 10-year business owner, father of 2 children, one 7 and one 2. I love Signal Mountain very much, and I want to contribute to it being the great family town that it is. Thank you.
Third now is Andrew Gardner.
Hi, everybody. Andrew Gardner. Can you hear me okay? Andrew Gardner? Okay.
Yeah.
Ran 4 years ago. Same objectives here. This is a family town. We need to be families first with what we do. Second, fiscal responsibility. Been a lot of really great work, mostly from our town staff, to create efficiency and restructure and rethink the way we're providing service to citizens. But unfinished business there, and we got some more work to do. And lastly, just want to ask for your vote to continue that work, and excited to be here. Thank you guys for putting this on.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. And finally, at the end of the table, Miles Jorgensen.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Let me start off by saying thank you, Greg. Thank you, Dick and Cheryl. Thank you to the MAC staff. Thank you to everybody up here, Eddie, Rufus, Andrew, for coming here. And most of all, thank you to everybody in the audience. You know, this is what we're all here for, is talk, share ideas, figure out how we can do our town the best. So here's a little bit about me. I'm kind of a hermit, so most of y'all probably have not met me because I kind of keep to myself, but I'm actually somewhat of an extrovert. I know that's kind of well, those don't necessarily always go together. I was born in Ringgold, lived in Georgia for 6 months, and I've been in Hamilton County for the last 41 years. Been on Signal Mountain since 2010. Have 3 children. They all went to Thrasher and the Signal Mountain Middle School. The 2 oldest are at Chattanooga STEM School. I've always thought about getting involved in government, but haven't really stepped out into that until this time. And, you know, I just want to get out there, do my best to help out, take everybody's needs and wants and desires into consideration, and try to find the best compromise that works best for everybody. Yeah, you know, I think it was John F. Kennedy. He said, you know, a rising tide rises all boats. Well, I believe that whatever's good for the community raises all of us and makes us all stronger and better. And that's my general goal. And I may have some wrong ideas. I'm going to throw out a lot of different ideas here that none of you guys have heard before. Maybe you have. I don't know. And those are just ideas. You know, I'm always open to getting information from everybody, using objective data-based evidence, and, you know, coming together as a group for the best for all of us.
Thank you very much. How about a hand for all 4 of these gentlemen? We certainly thank you for putting yourselves out there for the betterment of your community. Let's dive right into these questions if we can. The first, the structure of Signal Mountain government was changed to its current form about 35 years ago, and the town has grown, of course, markedly since then, both by geography and by population. We'll start with Mr. Gardner here. We'll just go down the row in alphabetical order. This is a 2-parter. We'll start with the first part of the question first. Mr. Gardner, have you read the town charter, and what other town documents have you read, such as the municipal code?
I have read the town charter and the municipal code, and parts of the municipal code so many times I can't count. I do not remember all of the municipal code
Nobody does,
on demand, but I have a copy on my phone at all times to reference. Yeah, I've read that. I think you mentioned the 35 years and the structure of the town. I'm not sure if we're answering that right now, but
We'll move to that one after we
Okay,
get everyone's
gotcha, yeah,
answer on this one
thank you.
first, yeah. Mr. Jorgensen, have you read the charter and the municipal code?
Yes, I have read the charter. I've read parts of the municipal code. I've also engaged in discussions with the heads of the different departments, Mr. Larry Sloan, Chief Williams, Wesley over in Public Works, talked with the town manager to try to get caught up on kind of the state of the town, where people are, and understand their perspectives and priorities, so that when I'm talking to people in the community, I can understand both sides of the equation and talk somewhat coherently about it.
Ms. Marie, same question to you, the city charter and the municipal code.
I have read the town charter, I've read the history of Signal Mountain, and I have read parts of the municipal code. I've visited over 600 homes thus far, and I've been getting the feedback from the citizens here on Signal Mountain.
And Mr. Smith, have you read the charter and the municipal code?
Yes, 20 of the 24 pages closely of the charter. The last was interesting. The municipal code, spending 11 years on the planning commission, yeah, we've become fairly familiar with that body of work, so, yeah.
We've established our bona fides here on the panel, so we'll move to the second part of the question. We'll go back to Mr. Gardner. Do you think the town should update its current government structure to consider changes such as electing council members by districts to ensure comprehensive representation and electing the mayor by popular vote rather than the current appointment process? What's your stand on that?
Yeah, great question. I haven't really looked into districting the town, but personally I have looked into, since I've been on council, the strong mayor form of government, which is an elected mayor, has more direct responsibility for town operations. Definitely some positives there, also some negatives. Can't say I have a definitive opinion either way. Maybe a slight preference to change it, but that's a pretty heavy lift to change to a strong mayor form of government.
Mr. Jorgensen.
I value the concept of ensuring comprehensive representation. I think the town is pretty diverse and spread out as is. I don't know that breaking it into smaller districts makes a whole lot of sense, because I think everybody, we're small enough. If we were a larger area, it might make more sense to have districts, but we all know each other. We're all small town. We're all kind of in the same boat. So my general stance on this is that I think our current system is good. I think that the council electing a mayor from within its ranks helps ensure continuity. You know, I've been thinking about it a lot, and if elected and I get on there, I'm not going to push to be the mayor or the vice mayor the first 2 years, because I feel like I need more experience, and whoever's in that needs that additional experience and knowledge base before they sit in that role. So that's my general thoughts.
Mr. Marie, any thoughts on the structure of the government here at Signal Mountain?
I don't think we need individual districts, but I definitely like the idea of the mayor being elected by the people. With the prerequisite, though, that whoever is running for mayor have been on the council for at least 4 years. That gives them experience, as well allows the citizens to see their voting record.
And Mr. Smith, your thoughts on the structure of the current government or perhaps a change?
Yeah, I agree with the panel. We're not large enough. We got less than 9,000 doors. Not large enough really for a district per se. The mayor or the form of government committee has worked fairly effectively. I think if that's going to be the case, and there is a potential, put it on the ballot. Let's see what the residents think. It makes it quick. It makes it concise, and you know what the town thinks. So do I support it? Kind of a little bit like Andrew, I'd like to see potentially what the lift looked like, but I think there's some other things that come with that we must take into consideration.
Any further comment on that one? First question down, Mr. Jorgensen, will come to you for question 2. The town council has used the general fund, the rainy day fund account, to balance the budget at least twice over the last few years. This is not sustainable, obviously, because of the way that works, but if the town can't balance its budget, should it raise taxes or should expenses be cut? If you choose the second option, cut expenses, please identify some specific areas or services you would suggest cutting, and we'll just assume that fraud, waste, and things like that are givens. What's your answer to that one?
So I don't think anybody up here is going to say they want to raise taxes. I don't think anybody in this room wants that. If you do, go ahead and raise your hand. I don't see any hands. I think Dick may have raised his hand back there. I'm not sure. You know, I would much rather cut taxes if we can. That doesn't mean that we don't end up raising taxes, you know, but that should definitely be a last resort. I do have some ideas for how we can, you know, budget is one of our things that we need to work on a lot as a town. And some ideas that I think we should consider is forming a town economic advisory board, and their job would be to analyze the budget and identify optimization strategies and opportunities. Another strategy that I think would be worth looking at, and you know, I haven't talked to the town attorney to even see if we can do this, but if we could, you know, create a citizen efficiency program that rewards citizens for providing suggestions to the town for how we can actually save money, and if those are implemented and we have objective evidence that savings were achieved, a portion of that savings would be distributed to whoever helped provide that savings to the town and helped all of us. You know, there's a lot of other considerations that go into that for sure, like, you know, does it work with the overall strategy of the town? And you know, at the end of the day, the cost savings is not necessarily the ultimate driving factor, but it is a strong driving factor. I think we need to work on repaying our town debts for the fire hall, address deferred maintenance, conduct in-depth studies to identify the best ways to do things, reduce our fixed costs through stuff like LED swap outs so that we're spending less monthly and we're spending our money wisely. We need to do a thorough line-by-line budget analysis and evaluate our department staffing to ensure that it's appropriate for our town size, and either size it up or down as needed.
Ms. Marie, raise taxes or cut expenses, and if cutting, what expenses would you cut?
Neither. What I would do is raise the rates at existing facilities. The pool, entrance to the pool, increase the rate at the pool. A lot of people don't know this, but there's a lot of people who go to the Signal Mountain pool who aren't even from Signal Mountain. And we're having our tax dollars pay for a pool when they're not. So I believe raising the rates at facilities, as the pool, as our ball fields. You want to rent the ball field, you need to pay a higher rate. Even leaf pickup, for example. We should be mulching our leaves anyway. So if you want to have your leaves picked up, you should pay a premium for that. If that doesn't work, then we'd have to sit down probably with the town manager and come up with a plan. And if that doesn't work, God forbid, as a last result though, I mean, after everything has been tried, if we have no other choice, then yes, I would raise taxes if I absolutely had to. I'm not going to sit here and say to you, well, I will never, ever, ever raise taxes. Folks, I'll promise to do my best not to raise them, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let this town go bankrupt.
Mr. Smith, raise taxes or cut expenses?
I think there's two facets to this. One, the town has got a finance director that's only been in place about a month. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Andrew, but he hadn't been here long.
Yes.
So I think two things. One, we need to let the new finance director figure out what the heck he's got on his plate. Number two, to dig into the budget to understand what are the levers that are affecting the budget. And then three, you know, everybody said it from a cost perspective or cost containment perspective, how do you utilize some form of best practices to look at those inefficiencies? And I'll take it a step further, even the inefficiencies that when you're trying to identify those, what do we outsource? What are we doing to highlight Signal Mountain? We talked about that during the tree board of the ball fields, and each team pays $35 to the town to utilize the ball fields. Well, I don't think from a cost containment perspective that's going to work. And so nobody wants to pay any more money. Why are we not getting other things in here? We've got two of the better ball fields on the road. We could host a Little League World Series. Would you say, Andrew, we got $130,000 to fix a ton of bathrooms in the city?
Potentially, yeah.
That's fantastic. So, you know, we're doing some things that are there, but do I have a position at this point that I can definitively say we're going to have to raise taxes? No, I don't think that's there. I think we've got to dig in. You got to give. There's going to be three positions that are going to get elected, and there's got to be a little bit of time to help those individuals come on board and figure out what's going on.
Finally, Mr. Gardner, your position on raise taxes or cut expenses?
Can you just read the whole question again,
certainly.
please?
Town council used our general fund, the rainy day fund account to balance the budget at least twice over the last few years. It's obviously not sustainable. If the town cannot balance its budget, should it, one, raise taxes, or two, cut expenses? And if you choose to, please identify specifically which town services you would cut or eliminate.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as the incumbent up here, I just want to clarify something. It's easy to get confused, budget versus actual. Budgets are planned at the beginning of the year. In the past several years, we have planned budget deficits in the general fund as we intentionally tried to implement restructuring and efficiencies to balance that budget. The change in the general fund balance, I'll read you from our audits, 2020 is positive 329,000, 2021 positive 850,000, 2022 positive around 400,000, 2023 positive around 400,000, and 2024 we don't have an audited financial yet, but it's positive 160,000. So
Good job.
negative, it didn't end up being negative. It may have been planned to be deficit spent. But as far as continuing to do that work, 35 years ago, we changed the form of government from having sort of these board members run the town to having a town manager and a council given the input to run the town. And we didn't, I think as a town, do a lot of adapting that's necessary. Citizens' needs and demands change over 35 years. In the last 15 years, technology has accelerated at an increasing pace. So the abilities that we can, and tools we can provide our staff with to do their jobs effectively are changing. And so those initiatives are really how we have managed in the last 4 years to not just balance the budget, but to essentially, probably on average, increase the pay. We are chronically underpaying our employees about 50%, and tackle a few infrastructure projects as well. Still a lot of work to do, and excited to continue that.
Any further discussion on that topic? We'll move on to the third question. Mr. Marie, you'll be first on this one. Town of Signal Mountain receives the vast majority of its tax revenue from residential property taxes. Would you be in favor of more commercial development to increase sales and property tax revenue? And if so, can you give some examples of developments that you would support and where they might be located, Mr. Marie?
Commercial development should not be created in an effort to create tax revenue. Commercial development should be created in order to satisfy customer and consumer demand. First off, I am in favor of commercial development, but I want this town to stick to small mom and pop businesses, individual owners, no grocery stores. Let Walden have the grocery stores. And they should be placed on Taft Highway and Mississippi Avenue, and that's it.
Mr. Smith, your thoughts on that one?
I think there's a big block. I was on the planning commission when we went through the grocery store discussions, and there's a large block, if you think about the Domino's commercial district when you look behind there, that property line, and I know I've walked it, there's a lot of land there. One of the things I think that we're missing on Signal Mountain is potentially a mixed-use senior type of development that we could utilize right there in that space and do it tastefully. Set up, the nice mountain structure with some different stores or different vendors that are there. That's one thing that we could do, or mixed use community living for others to join and integrate the seniors. I know that Westfield and those things are kind of blocked off for our valued seniors, and it keeps the kids from driving them nuts. I get that. But there's a lot of land that we've got sitting right here that we haven't done anything with, and I think that we could do some things, but I think the town's got to be engaged in that process. It can't just be, hey, we're going to roll these things out. How do we engage the town? How do we engage the voters? Maybe through town hall meetings or something like that.
Mr. Gardner, are you in favor of further commercial development to increase sales and property taxes, and if so, where and what?
It's a tough question, because if you look at our budgets, and compare to other municipalities in the area or Tennessee, the one thing that's missing is commercial revenue. And it really makes our revenue mix very difficult to manage, and being able to provide the services citizens expect difficult, because we're kind of missing a 2/3 chunk essentially from our budget there. When you look at our land, I don't know exactly where you would do that. Now, Eddie's a much better expert on this than me, and this is not my particular area of concentration. So, the town was not originally centrally planned in a way that was probably conducive to having some large commercial areas that could blend correctly to multifamily and then single-family homes. Right now, we've got our main commercial area right next to single-family homes. So it's a difficult thing to do, from a budgetary standpoint, we love it. Just like to see a good plan on how it could be accomplished.
Mr. Jorgensen.
So I think it would be good to increase commercial development, but to do that, we need to prioritize using properties that are currently not even being used for that purpose. We've got, at the corner of CVS, there's at least 2 properties that are not even in use. And I'm sure there are more. Back a few years ago when we looked at the large development behind the Domino's for the Food City, I'm sure everybody's familiar with that was here at that time. I went through, and there were numerous properties within the town limits that were not even utilized, and they were going to create a magnet, which we've already kind of got our grocery store up here in a business, a strip mall area, and that just didn't make sense when we have a whole bunch of empty properties. So I think we need to make an environment that encourages locally owned small businesses and attracts both residents and visitors from out of town to spend money there. To achieve this, I think, the Economic Advisory Board I mentioned earlier would play a key role in evaluating our current businesses, identifying potential development opportunities that align with our community needs and preferences. Because, like other people have mentioned, we don't need to build businesses just for tax. We need to build it so that we, what the community needs. And part of what they would do is also develop strategies and incentives and other measures to help attract those targeted things that we want as a community. And if we follow this approach, I feel like we can do it in a way that maintains our town's character and quality of life, which is, I think that's why we're all here and what's most important. So,
Any further discussion on that topic? Mr. Smith, we'll come to you first with our 4th question. The community here is comprised of 2 separate towns, total population less than 11,000 if you don't count the unincorporated parts of the county. The question's with this one. Do you think Signal Mountain and Walden should work together to combine services like trash removal and recycling to try to save money and increase efficiency?
I think it definitively needs to be evaluated. Do I think yes, for sure, without looking at the dollars? I don't know. I don't know what their retirement structure is, what their pay structure is. Andrew, you mentioned a minute ago, we're a little bit behind. But if we can save money for our residents, unequivocally, look at those combined services. Look at outsourcing potentially of UTC, some of the largest private school campuses in the area, if you just look at who mows their grass, who takes care of the grounds and leaves, those are things that have already been outsourced. It's been proven that that's a 20 to 30+% yield on savings. So yeah, I would be all for it if they would reciprocate and want to join forces so that we can save some money. Yeah.
Second part of that question is, do you think the two towns, Signal Mountain and Walden, should discuss merging the way that Soddy and Daisy did years ago?
I don't. I like the individual character of Signal Mountain versus, I think Walden has its own unique character, and that's not me saying anything disparaging about that. I'll take it a step further. Signal Mountain, Walden, Lone Oak, unincorporated Hamilton County, that's the bigger purview on where we need to align our resources and ensure that the county, and that's only, that also includes conservation from trees, builders, all of the continuity of how do we maintain this field. So I'm not a big proponent of that, but otherwise I'd like all of us to go and work collectively from Signal Mountain to Dunlap to ensure that the mountain stays whole.
Mr. Gardner, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think very good points by Eddie. You know, I've always thought of Walden as having a distinct identity and approach to taxation, and which is a lot lower, and services as a result. I don't know that there's a whole lot to collaborate on. I'm certainly in favor of it, because the reality on our budget is we tend to provide services for the mountaintop, and we only can tax approximately half of the mountaintop. So it becomes kind of a burden to provide those services or help out with those services. Would love to collaborate with Walden and unincorporated, but I do think there's a different approach in general and demand from the citizens on what they expect and what they want in terms of services, garbage pickup, leaf pickup being some of them, I think. So love to work on it, though.
And your answer on whether or not the two should...
Yeah, I think that's hard to do when you have kind of two different identities. It's like if you asked folks in unincorporated if they'd like to volunteer to join the town and pay the taxes, they'd say, I'm not going to use the word, but no.
Mr. Jorgensen.
So I think cooperation between everybody on the mountain is important, both the unincorporated Sequatchie County, unincorporated Hamilton County, and Walden, as well as our town. There is a key difference that these guys have also hit on that's in my notes, and that's a difference in property tax burdens between the different areas and service level expectations. And that we do provide services for them. You know, our paid fire department helps respond to the Walden Volunteer Fire Department all the time. They also respond backwards. It's a two-way street, but we're paying our guys and they're volunteering, so it's a little bit different. We need to ensure that any cooperative arrangements are fair and equitable for everybody involved, and that means looking at cost sharing, making sure that we have a system that fairly distributes the cost of shared services. We also need to look at service level agreements, make sure that clear agreements and expectations of what each party is going to provide are outlined on the forefront with a plan for how are we going to get through disagreements. And lastly, I think there's a huge component of public input where, as I think it was, I don't remember who mentioned it, but you know, we all have our unique identities up here. Walden has theirs, the unincorporated areas have theirs, and the public really needs to be at the forefront of that discussion of, you know, what do we see the identity. But the fact of the matter is we're all on top of this ridge, and we're all sort of geographically isolated and together, and yeah, we need a cohesive, I don't want to call it a metro area plan because we're way smaller than that, but we need a cohesive plan between the lot of us that helps everybody.
Ms. Marie.
I definitely think that the town of Walden should be helping out at Signal Mountain Middle and High School. Their kids are going there as well, and they could help providing, if it's only just one police officer, one person to help with the kids being dropped off and then picked up. With the exception of that, I really don't, since we have 4 times the population, I really don't see us gaining anything from joining with them.
Mr. Gardner, we'll come back to you for the next question. You're sitting in one of the town's services right now, Mountain Arts Community Center. This is the historic, nearly 100-year-old Signal Mountain Grammar School. This, for the last few years, has been run by a group of volunteers named the Signal Mountain Elementary Preservation Fund. Volunteers save the taxpayers of Signal Mountain approximately $150,000 per year. In the last 4 years, they've also served the town by providing 27,000 hours as volunteers. And they're operating the facility, renovating the MAC here as well, and that helps save even more tax dollars. So, Mr. Gardner, we'll start with you in this question. First, we'll say, do you think the MAC should continue to provide services to the residents of the Signal Mountain community? And depending on your response to that, there's a second part of the question.
Yes.
That was almost a timid yes, sitting in the magnificent building, was it? Well, okay, yes. Okay, that leads to how would you support the MAC specifically and the volunteers that do so much work here?
Yeah. You know, the MAC is SMEPF is, I think, what we're really talking about here. Has a lease agreement with the town, and they do this excellent work that you see here today. Even 4 years ago when I started on council, this room looked different, and a lot of the hard, heavy lifting had already been done to take this building, which was in major disrepair, after Hamilton County turned it over and turn it into this gym that we have now. So those folks have done excellent work and continue to do excellent work. How the town supports is currently under the lease agreement, it's not specified in that way, but we pay for the utilities as well as tend to budget some capital projects every year. It is the town's asset, and we should keep maintaining the asset.
Mr. Jorgensen, first, should the MAC continue providing services to the residents of the Signal Mountain community?
Yes, I think so. Talking to people, there's a lot of strong opinions, both sides of this. I want to take a little bit of time to highlight some things about this facility. It's a very low-cost item on our town budget. If you take all the citizens in the town from the 2020 census and divide it by the $23,000 the town has budgeted for 2024, it works out to $2.69 per resident per year. For my family, that's $13.45. And here's what that pays for. 350 to 400 students per week enjoy services here. 700 people or more attend the MAC Market events per day of those events. Whenever we host a play here, there's 100 attendees, and when a symphony performs here, there's 60 attendees. Several students have gotten full ride scholarships at universities of their choice, and those benefits for $13.45 are very outsized, and I'm happy to pay my $13.45 every year for the town to have that. I would argue that the level of services here, and there are people that come from Sand Mountain all the way here to do ballet classes. I mean, that when people are driving that far for something, that tells you how valuable an asset is. And I think what that does is it creates a supply-demand curve on housing. You know, it makes people not want to move because we've got good assets like this, the pool, the ball fields, other stuff. It also makes other people want to move here. And when you have those supply-demand pressures, that actually increases our property values. And I would argue, I don't have evidence of this, I'd love for somebody to take the time and put this together, but I would argue the property value increase that we get from the MAC far exceeds that $13.45.
Mr. Marie, your thoughts on whether the mission should continue here? If so, how would you support it? And if not, what would be your plan for the historic facility?
I do recommend and hope the MAC stays here. With the two following recommendations, or actually three. One, the budget doesn't go over what it currently is, which is $25,000. And the other is that all of the bathrooms are designated for the vast majority of, or basically, I shouldn't say the vast majority. I should say you should have bathroom signs that are designated for everybody on Signal Mountain, not a specific group of people. And thirdly, that you use this facility the same way the principals and teachers and faculty at our current public schools treat their facilities as a means to teach and bring people together, as opposed to trying to perpetuate a political agenda.
Mr. Smith, your thoughts on whether the mission should continue? If so, how would you support it? And if not, what would your plan be for this?
I think that the volunteers, then there's been a tremendous amount of volunteers. Dick and Cheryl Graham have done an amazing job driving it home, setting an agenda, actually creating progress. Andrew, to your point, this room, not even 4 years ago, was in total disrepair, and there's been some outstanding funding that these guys have done. So every community deserves a creative art center, even if it's for someone to come in and we just meet and have dialogue right here. Every community deserves that. It's a place that they can come and feel safe and then come feel valued. So without a doubt. What was the second part of the question, Greg? I'm sorry.
If you think the mission should continue, what are the ways that you would support it?
I guess because I'm in sales, I think in a revenue generation perspective, and how can those individuals that are coming in that utilize this, and I'm not talking about breaking the bank. Miles, you made a great statement on, the $13.45 per family. I think that's amazing that per year we're blessed enough to have that, but everything has a cost. And how do you sustain that cost with a little bit of balance and a little bit of care, so that, if it's a $5 fee to utilize it for a month, whatever that is, I'm just throwing that out. But we've got to do that feasibility study to figure out how we survive and how we continue to grow.
Any further discussion on the MAC? We'll move on. Mr. Jorgensen, you'll be first on this one. Talking about Signal Mountain's personnel policy. Signal Mountain's personnel policy states that no person will be discriminated against in employment because of race, color, religion, gender or gender identity, age, national origin, disability, military status, communication with an elected public official for job-related purposes, free speech, refusing to participate in or remain silent about illegal activities, exercising a statutory constitutional right or any right that under clear public policy, political affiliation, genetic information, or any other basis protected by law. That's the entire statement there. The question is, do you support the town's existing non-discrimination policy? Should it apply to all town properties and services, whether or not it's operated by town employees?
So I do support that. That is a long statement. I think we could simplify it maybe. My thing is, I support the policy in its entirety, and I feel that people have an unalienable right to be whoever they choose to be, provided they're not hurting other people, having a negative impact on them, or violating the law. So, we're all individuals. We all have our own things, and let's respect each other, respect other people for who they are, and, what happens at your house that's up to you. What happens at my house, that's up to me. That's my sense.
Is that last statement aimed at the end of this question? Should it apply to all town properties and services, whether operated by town employees or other entities?
No, I skipped that. I think that, that's alluding to the bathroom sign here at the MAC is largely what that's alluding to. My understanding on that specific issue is that, the MAC is a tenant, and by the contract with the town, there's not really a right for the town to tell the MAC what to do, and under that, they're able to do what they want to do. So I feel like if people are concerned about that, they should take it up with the MAC staff directly and come to a resolution. I also think for any future things, they should be considered on a case-by-case basis with concern for both individual rights and concern for the negative impact on others, and we need to take a common sense balance that optimizes both of those.
Mr. Marie.
I don't believe in that policy. For example, if I take a loaded gun with me to Domino's where I'm working, and they say, hey, you can't bring a gun in here. You can't work here if you keep bringing your gun. That's their right, okay? It's my constitutional right to carry a firearm, but that's their right to let me go. Each business, it's tough enough being in business for yourself, and you have to try and create an atmosphere, okay? If I go in there, same thing. If I worked at Mayfly Coffee, and I come in there with a Confederate flag on my shirt or my uniform, you know, that's my right. That's who I am. Well, that's not the kind of atmosphere they want to create there at Mayfly Coffee, I'm pretty sure. So, and that's their right to fire them. So, no, unfortunately, although there are parts of that I agree with, I don't agree with that statement.
And you're specifically saying it should not be enforced, whether run by city employees or other entities?
Correct, both. Because unfortunately, I've seen a lot of, unfortunately today, although that protects a lot of people, I think, sadly, there's a lot of people who are using those same policies to exploit their employers, to get what they want without fear of being fired, when the employer is trying to create an atmosphere to win.
Mr. Smith, your thoughts?
I guess I'll take it back a little bit from a different perspective. Treat and do unto others as you want that done to you. The personnel policy just lines out what other people are thinking and how they're desired to be treated. That policy doesn't bother me. And again, even if it's outside of the purview or the rules and regs of the city, again, it goes back to treating individuals like they need to be treated as individuals, right? That self-respect, that preservation, that character. So again, you were a veteran, thank you for your service. I served. Those are reasons that we serve for those things, is in our world, that freedom of choice, speech.
And Mr. Gardner?
This question I couldn't, well, okay. I don't know, because it concerns employment, I don't understand in what instance we have discrimination of employees at any of the entities that work with the town. I'm not aware of any, and I would personally invite anybody to please let me know if that's happening. I think that the organizations we work with do not discriminate on any of these bases when they're employing folks. So I don't know if it was in reference to a specific person. I don't think we really need to dictate that to the folks we work with, such as SMAPF. They're not doing that. They probably have a very similar policy. Maybe not those exact words, but I would love for somebody to point the issue out to me, and maybe it does need to be addressed, but I don't think it's an issue that needs to be addressed.
Any further discussion? Mr. Marie, will come to you next. Most of the benefits of living here on Signal Mountain come from the involvement of the citizens. How would you increase a sense of community, and how would you get more citizens involved in town government?
One of the things that we do very well on the, as a town, or at least the town meetings, is they stream the, what is going on, which is a great idea. What I would like to see happen is those events, those meetings that are streamed, be recorded and allow people to view them when they can. Thank you, Mr. Gardner, very much for your service. Most families are sitting down and, eating together while our town council is collaborating. So not a really good time to stream what's going on. So I think they should be recorded and allowed for people to watch whenever they want. The other thing that would be great is, because people have regular lives, that's why they elect us to do the work for us, is to simplify it, and because sometimes these town meetings take 2 to 3 hours, okay? I think there should be a simple paragraph explaining what happened and who voted what. I think that would be a great way to get more people involved if we simplify that.
Mr. Smith?
Would you read the question
Certainly,
one more time,
yes.
please?
Most of the benefits of living here on Signal Mountain come from the involvement of the citizens. How would you increase a sense of community, and how would you go about getting more citizens involved in local government?
I think we've got to we've got to do a better job of engaging, and that's almost that reverse engineer. So 2 to 4 town hall meetings a year. Would love to do those. Love to do 1 to 2 meetings at Alexian a year, just as a standalone. And how do we get more people involved? I think one of the things that, and I'm guilty of this. I'll say it. I've served 11 years on the Planning Commission. I think we need term limits on our committees and some of the other boards that are out there. Maybe it's 8 years, whatever it is, I don't know. But we need more fresh blood to come in there. And I think that would afford the ability for a heck of a lot of people to come onto some of these boards. But again, it goes back to that transparent communication, come in, help. You know, it takes a village, and we all know that.
Mr. Gardner.
Can't agree more with the beginning of that question. Our town is successful because of citizens and volunteers. We are missing that, approximately 1/2 to 2/3 of revenue that comes from commercial activity. So we need the volunteers to step up, and they do. We've got SMEPF here that does great work and volunteers countless hours and money to provide this service. We've got the people that run our various sports leagues that put countless hours into maintaining fields, getting things ready, and organizing all that so kids can have fun out there and grow. We've got the tree board out there planting trees and honor trees on Arbor Day, and all of that's part of what makes this town work. We you know, personally for me, I feel like my opinion is that we need those. We need that engagement. How do we increase it? I think from the council's perspective, we need to make citizens feel heard. I think when you talk to the average citizen, they feel like they don't have input, they're not heard. That's a problem that we can and need to fix. One of the council's agenda for the past 2 main agenda items in strategic planning for the past 2 years has been to implement citizen surveying so that we're actively participating, reaching out to citizens, getting their input, and when then we're able to incorporate that into our strategic plan, see what people want, what things they want prioritized that will really help us with dealing with these difficult budgets that we have. So love that question and glad that whoever submitted it asked it.
And Mr. Jorgensen.
I think our community is very special. We have an affluent community. It's dominated by motivated people, and when those people are given tools, I think they will step up in a way that best represents themselves as individuals and part of the community. I do think there's room for improvement to help foster a greater sense of community and increase citizen involvement in our town government. Some things that I think would help with that is increased transparency, making town information more accessible by, an example of that is releasing the full budget instead of an abbreviated summary budget on the town's website. But I also think when you do something like that, you need to put out user-friendly tools that make that information understandable to everybody. So you don't have to be an MBA in finance or accounting to understand the information put in front of you. I'm personally committed to maintaining open communication and direct engagement with everybody in the town. Afterwards, we're going to have some tables with campaign literature, and you'll find I have door hangers, and they've got my personal cell phone number, my personal email on there, and I want anybody to reach out to me and contact me for anything if I'm elected, and you know I'll take it seriously and bring it up to the council. I do kind of expect the other side of that is, you know, respect my personal time and space. Community events, I think, you know, organizing, supporting community events and gatherings that bring people together and foster a sense of belonging, I think that helps. I think we do a lot of that already, but I think we can do more. Social media, I think we could do better as a town, as a government, of putting more information out on the social media. The police department does fabulous with their stuff, and I think the rest of the town could follow suit and step up to that same level of quality engagement on social media. So I think by implementing these, we create a more engaged and connected community, and I think the people up here will step in and fill those roles as needed without us having to push too hard.
While we're mentioning volunteers, shout out to the volunteers that make the Signal Mountain Playhouse happen. That's one of my near and dear to my heart. Mr. Smith, we'll come to you for the next one, and this one, we're going to try to hold you to 2 minutes, but you may take longer. The question, what do you see as the most important issue confronting the town at this point in time, and what would you do to address said issue?
I think it's resources. I think that the town is strained. We've got so much growth that's headed toward Dunlap and all areas in between that if we don't look at our resources, how are we going to manage them? That goes back to school overflow, fiscal discipline. How is it that we can become and it goes back to our earlier question, to engage Walden, Lono, unincorporated Hamilton County. How do we do it better? How do we engage? And that's what scares me about the mountain is we've only got so many resources. We've only got so much space in the schools, and that's the elementary schools. The fire departments are already lending help. The police, they're wonderful. I'm the son, my mother's passed away several years ago, but she was a Hamilton County police officer. And yeah, you should have grown up with that. That was not fun in Hickson in the 80s. It was not. But my point is that the resources and how we manage those resources with that discipline, but it's going to start with, really reaching across the aisle to say, how are we going to go? How are we going to go and tread this path and make certain that all of the mountain is taken care of from tip to toe?
Mr. Gardner, the biggest issue and how you plan to face it.
Yeah, our biggest issue is still budget. It's tight every year. Same as what Eddie's saying. We don't have some of those pieces that other towns have. We have the expectations that we have, the services that those other towns have. And it's been an evolution process, I think, for the town, and just countless hours and really brilliant work from our town employees. I'm not, the council can't take credit for the changes that have happened. It's police officers in our police department. It's all our staff that have come up with these creative ideas. They knew the solutions when we kind of challenged them to, hey, let's think about how we structure this service differently, or let's think about how we prioritize this thing. And staff's almost completed implementing a new back office technology software suite, which should really help out with efficiency, particularly in the finance arena, as well as provide some better customer-facing solutions to citizens for sign-ups and visibility on being able to reserve various town assets, pavilions, fields, things like that. But the work's not done. It's still a battle every year. We aren't at a sustainable point long-term yet. We still have to keep adapting and fixing things. And one of the things that came up as we've discussed potential tax increases over the last several years is talked to so many citizens, and the common theme was, number one, we're going to pay our employees competitive wages. So that was a priority that we fixed over the past 4 years. There will be more work to be done there. Wages aren't going to stay stagnant. And number two is spend wisely, and what they meant by that, two things, common themes. Working efficiently and adapting and using technology, and prioritizing the services that citizens want. And when we've done those things, then we can, citizens are not irrational and say, yeah, okay, we could do a tax increase after those are done, but we've got a lot of work on those first few items.
Mr. Jorgensen.
So I pulled out two things instead of one. I hope that's okay. The first one is budget control, and that's what everybody up here is going to hit on, I'm sure. We need to continue comprehensive reviews of our budget to identify where we can make more improvement. I absolutely agree. This wasn't in my notes, but I absolutely agree with Andrew that we need to make sure our employees are paid competitive wages. They are our biggest asset. And when you go talk to the guys that are out here working 40 hours a week doing services for us, they have the solutions. And if we're not paying them competitively, they're going to go somewhere else, and we're going to lose those solutions and then have to spend more money training people to fill those spots to get back to where we were. The other big thing is deferred maintenance, and the current town council just at their last meeting did a lot on that. They did some work on the sidewalk, they did some work on the bathrooms. There was a lot of money set aside for really, really good stuff that the town needs. And I think we need to ensure when we implement projects that we allocate sufficient funds for the maintenance and repair of those going forward, so that we don't end up in a situation where we've got a 50-year-old pool and we've got a lot of problems that have crept up because we've put them off. We need to plan for that on the front end whenever we implement something. How can we ensure that there's a continuity plan for all these services so that we all have what we expect going forward? And again, I'm going to fall back on what I mentioned earlier about an economic advisory board. I think they would have a key role to play in here. And I think that would improve the financial health of the town and ensure that the infrastructure remains in good condition moving forward for a long time.
And Ms. Marie, biggest issue facing the town and how you would confront it?
I got two things as well. Mitigating population growth here on the mountain and ensuring the safety of the families here on Signal. No more compartmentalized housing, no apartments, no more condos, folks. If you want to build a home up here, that's fine, but it's going to be a single-family home on a 1/4 acre of land, okay? And if you want, if the construction company or you wants to build a road to your house or connect to sewer, then that's going to be on you. We're not going to put the burden of new construction on the citizens of Signal Mountain anymore. Okay, going to what I said about the families and keeping our kids safe. Folks, I'm not a big fan of Airbnbs or VRBOs on Signal Mountain. I think they should be shut down. That's just waiting for something bad to happen to our kids. I don't know one single family here that likes the idea of an Airbnb being right next to them, okay? I like the idea, I have an idea to allow families, individual families, to put up their own speed bumps. If you see somebody crazy driving through your road a lot and you've got kids, and that's a concern. So what you do, you request, as long as you've got the permission of the person to your right, the house to your right and to your left and the 3 across the street, you can pay for and install your own speed bump. They're not expensive and they're not that hard to install. And last thing is requesting volunteers. The MAC has done a great job of doing volunteers. We need to get those same kind of people helping with our schools in the morning for drop-off and pickup, okay? So I'm about to get my 2 minutes. That's my 2 minutes of time right there.
Excellent. Any further discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry, and one other thing. All those things I just mentioned don't cost the taxpayers anything. So I think they could be very helpful.
Thank you. Mr. Gardner, you get our next question first. Would you support a recycling transparency and accountability ordinance that would inform the town citizens what percentage of materials collected are actually being recycled, meaning items that are made into new products, returned to the marketplace to be sold, and what percentage is considered contamination and sent to the landfill?
Yes, I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Jorgensen.
That was another, what is it, brevity is wit? You're expert at this, Andrew. I do strongly support a recycling transparency and accountability ordinance to inform our citizens of the effectiveness of recycling program. I'm a strong believer that you need data and information about your program to understand how you're doing, and that's the only way you're going to improve it. I do have a Master of Science in Environmental Science, so sustainability and environmental topics are kind of one of the things I'm really soft on at the bottom. Yeah, I think that information, going back to my transparency earlier, I think that ought to be put on our website, or maybe not on the front page, but it ought to be so anybody can go on there and get the heartbeat of our recycling program if they choose to.
Mr. Marie, recycling transparency, do you support an ordinance?
Yes, I would. I would support it.
Mr. Smith.
Absolutely. I think I'd take it a step further. We make money off of cardboard. So I think that the glass and some of the other materials may cost the town a bit of dollars. Maybe we need to streamline that, but there's enough glass that goes in there. I'm much more of a conservationist, and I like it. I just think we need to educate, make sure all of our citizens know, recycle your cardboard, we make money. So, yep.
Good deal. Let's move on to the next question. Mr. Jorgensen, coming to you first. As the town of Signal Mountain grows, traffic congestion is becoming more of a problem. Any ideas or plans to address that issue?
So this is a complex issue. I'm going to divide it up into three sections. There's Taft Highway traffic, which has increased. You know, I've lived in Signal Mountain since 2010, and since then there's been a lot of increase in traffic. You know, just turning off of Cawthon Way onto Taft Highway takes a lot longer than it used to. That's a U.S. highway, and the state maintains it. So any solution there, you know, we're going to have to get all the stakeholders, which is probably Walden, unincorporated Hamilton County, TDOT, together, and talk about solutions and how to fund those solutions. And it needs to be something that works for everybody. Obviously, we all deal with the traffic. It's probably more of a burden to people in the town because we're actually trying to turn on and off the road. So we've definitely got a big stake in that conversation, but we need to get everybody together. Just once you have everybody in the room to talk about it, that's a good way to look at it. The other two areas are in front of our school zones. One's Thrasher Elementary, one's at the Nolan and Middle High School complex. And at face value, they seem like the same thing. They're very different. And if you've paid attention to the last few council meetings, they've had a lot of discussion on this. Chief Williams has come in and looked at it. His deputies that do traffic control there, I think his lieutenants came in and spoke to it. Thrasher Elementary, that school is primarily dominated by people who live inside the town limits. So that's definitely all a town issue, and as those are our roads, that's our place to maintain. The council put up more flashing lights at the last, using some ARPA funds recently, which is a good step, and I think we need to continue to look at other efforts. Some of those mentioned were better bus utilization, better carpooling, if we can get, and I'm guilty of this also. I drive my sixth grader to Signal Mountain Middle High School every day, and I'm part of that long traffic line. When I'm sitting in that traffic line, what I worry about is, man, this traffic line's both directions. If these guys right here across from Nolan have a fire, how long is it going to take the fire department to get there? And, you know, I worked at 911 for 10 years. It takes 10 minutes for a house to be lost completely. And it would take a fire department longer than 10 minutes to get to one of those houses during school hours, I feel. So that brings me to the Nolan Middle High School area, and I'm sorry for going over time a little. I think I gave away some earlier, so hopefully it's even. That we have people coming from all over the mountain. I think we've even got some students from Sequatchie County and off the mountain that attend there, but predominantly it's unincorporated Hamilton County, Walden, and Signal Mountain. And I think any solution there needs, again, like Taft Highway, we need to get the stakeholders together, get us all talking. I don't think it's fair for Signal Mountain to fund all of the improvements there because we're just a portion of the issue. So we need cooperation from our neighbors as well.
Mr. Marie, traffic ideas, ways to combat the heavy traffic?
As I mentioned earlier with the schools, doing what the MAC has done so well, getting volunteers to help with control, as also I mentioned earlier, asking maybe a little support from Walden, since their kids go to Signal Mountain and high school as well. I like the idea of a stoplight, another stoplight on Taft Highway. I've mentioned before maybe putting it in front of the gas station at Pruitt's, right there, but open to any other suggestions of where it could be. I know that, as I understand, the town council cannot put up stoplights. We need permission from the state, but we can write the state a letter asking their permission and saying, hey, can you help us out with this? So, yeah, basically that, and although it doesn't flow with the congestion, as I said before, allowing neighborhoods to put up their own speed bumps to protect their families.
Mr. Smith, your thoughts on traffic and congestion?
Yeah, within the Planning Commission, we've had an endeavor, and again, this would be working in conjunction with the town council, but we've had an endeavor really to start looking at CVS all the way to the other side of Pruitt's, and what do you do in that area? We've talked about, you know, how do we slow the traffic down, maybe roundabouts, and I think that really, if you think about a roundabout, and no, I don't like them, nobody likes them. Let's just be real candid about it. But it's either a roundabout and we keep the traffic flowing, or you do a red light and you set it right outside of the police service center and town hall and the pool. That's the area where children, if you go 400 yards each way, all the way down to the convenience store, and then you ease them down, within the neighborhoods back off of Signal Road, that's where there's a heck of a lot of children. That's the reason, yes, we've got to slow it down. But again, everybody else has notated, you've got TDOT, you've got funds, and how's that done? But I think that's an easier fix, and it slows the traffic down versus a stop sign or a light.
Further discussion? No? All right, we'll move on. First to Mr. Marie this time. Town of Signal Mountain has aging water lines. Are you aware of any plans to replace those water lines?
I'm not aware of any plans right now to replace the water lines. My opinion is, as long as they're working, we've got other things to worry about. I think the first thing we need to take care of is cleaning of the excess sewage that is coming off of the mountain currently. That should be our number one priority as far as works goes.
Mr. Smith.
I like that suggestion. WWTA is really heavily engaged in that. We all know that they're looking at these different stations. I've lost my train of thought. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Aging water lines,
Aging
are you
water
aware
lines.
of them?
I live in Hidden Brook. We've had our yard blow up twice, where you raise up and it's 1 a.m. in the morning and there's a geyser that it's just blowing on you. So I don't know. That's been repaired, and I think it's going to be something that, to expand upon that, it's more water supply is what I'd like to say, is what are we going to do with our water? Are we going to tee into Hickson Utility? The current town council did a great job of digging in and finding, what was it, Andrew, 100 feet, basically? It wasn't far.
Getting through some, difficult discussions regarding putting the interconnection in on Miles Road.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to the bigger question is pipes, but the other one is, how do we make sure we get water up to the mountain? I don't think the town of Signal Mountain or anybody up here wants to be in the water business. So,
And Mr. Gardner.
There is a plan currently to replace the infrastructure. We've got a water utility director right now, Matthew Justice, that is just phenomenal.
he's awesome.
And has been working for the last 3 years or so with a great plan. We can't replace it all at once, can't afford that. We have, as a council, raised rates, as you all know, recently as part of a long-term projection of the needs we need to replace that infrastructure on a reasonable basis and get comparable with other water utilities in the area. So that's in place. We've added the backup supply through the interconnection. If they decide to blow up the main in Chattanooga again, we at Tennessee American, we have the ability to pull water and keep everybody's water supply fed to their homes through the interconnection with Walden Utility. So a lot of improvements there, and that's a place where we've got a great plan and we're working through it. It will take time. There's other issues that I know Hidden Brook is a problem area. Anywhere where it's a little downhill, you build up a lot more pressure. And so another initiative that the water utility has been putting in place is getting the proper, I guess we sort of didn't build it right the first time, having the proper pressure regulators in between different areas to keep the pressure from getting so high in those lower spots that we're just, even if it's new infrastructure, it might still be catastrophically failing.
Mr. Jorgensen, your thoughts on the aging water lines?
So I think this is a significant concern. Again, this probably goes back to my being an environmental guy, and in my day job, I deal with water and wastewater all the time. But we need to prioritize replacement of aging water lines, especially where there's risks of leaks or contamination, because that's talking about your health, and that's water you're going to consume, and we don't want anybody to get sick or kids to get sick. So this has to be a priority. It's not a choice. I think we need to work with the town officials. It sounds like there's already a plan. I'm not in the loop on that plan personally. But I think also talking to businesses and residents so that we can ensure that, we're projecting what our future needs are. Our business is going to expect to use more. Our residents installing more pools, do we need more capacity? And I think that sort of proactive approach helps the safety and reliability of our system. I also want to that's it from my notes, but I want to touch more on what Andrew said, that, you know, Hidden Brook has got some high-pressure areas, but there's also parts of the town that have low-pressure areas, and those need to be addressed just as much. And, you know, my house is a prime example of that. At 7 p.m., when everybody's taking showers and going to the bathroom, or 9 p.m., and it doesn't happen often, but sometimes I get down to hardly any water pressure. And, you know, again, I could pay and install a booster. I don't feel like I should have to do that. I don't feel like any of us should have to regulate our own water pressure. That's kind of what the city should do for us. So be smart about it, and kind of like I said earlier, we need to plan for, and I think Andrew was hinting at this, plan for, you know, how do we continue funding this going forward so that we don't end up in this same mess where we've deferred it and pushed it back and we're dealing with the same problem 20 years from now.
Any further discussion? Mr. Marie, we started with you on that one, didn't we?
Yes.
We'll go to Mr. Smith next. As a town council candidate, do you see any potential sidewalk projects or perhaps improvements within the town limits on that?
I think we've already got a sidewalk project that has been underway in Old Town for a long time. I'd love to know the status of that, and I don't think that we're, as a town, overly at fault. I don't know if the money ran out, but that's the initial sidewalk project that I'd want to address. I think we need more sidewalks, and I think we need it for the kids, especially in that area between CVS down to the gas station in front of Pruitt's. If you go on the opposite side of the road, we've got room down there to put a sidewalk combined or bike path as well. So yeah, there's some dollars that are there. There's some resources that are there that we can get. It doesn't have to necessarily be concrete, or how do we start out with something a little bit different? But yeah, I'd love to see Old Town first and then that main tap corridor next.
Mr. Gardner, sidewalks.
Yeah, Old Town sidewalks, I guess if there's one fun frustration with being on council, it's dealing with 20-year-old projects, the interconnection being one of those. We've been working on a plan. We have a pretty good grant for that, that we have been approved for. That we got approved for that grant a really long time ago. I don't remember the exact date. Maybe Eddie does, but
It's been a while.
so of course the costs of actually completing the project have gone up in that over a decade of time. So we've had to kind of reissue or rework with them to get an updated grant amount. What we have done as a council here recently is through some great work from our public works folks, they identified the biggest problem areas in Old Town. And we have a plan to tackle those outside of the grant, because the grant process is extremely time consuming and a lot of red tape. Things like having to get approval from all the Native American tribes that have a claim in the area, things like that when you deal with a federal grant. That's not going to get our problem areas fixed before somebody breaks an ankle. So what Wesley, our head of public works, has done is identified those areas, and we're breaking those out, and we just had consensus last meeting to fund the town taking on those parts and handling those in the next year or two. So should see some improvement there. Where I, just like with Eddie, would really love to see some improvement is along Taft Highway there. That's our biggest trouble spot and danger spot. All of our kids and things we love about our town, that in the summertime they can go to the pool, they can go to Pruitt's, they can walk up and down Taft Highway there, but we do need to work on the safety, try to get sidewalks and crosswalks in. Working with the state tends to be difficult on those, but I'm excited to take that next phase on.
Mr. Jorgensen, sidewalks.
They're absolutely important. I think they enhance safety, they enhance fitness, they help everybody be healthier. I've gone through bouts on and off. I know I don't look like it, but I would walk from Thrasher all the way to Alexian and back almost daily during COVID. So they're very important, and there's a lot of cracks that people can trip on, especially in Old Town. A lot of the ones outside Old Town have already been repaired. I think we need to first focus on areas with uneven surfaces, inadequate lighting, and obstructions, because people walk on them at night, especially in the winter when it's dark. And you know, again, we need to go back and have an open conversation about this with the community to decide what areas are prioritized. I do think there's a lot of merit in the CVS to the pool to the convenience store area. I also think there's some merit in Timberlinks. You know, I don't know how many people would, you know, consider walking or biking to school, and maybe that would help some with the traffic at the middle high school if we had sidewalks up there. And I think it'd be outstanding if we could, you know, increase that, maybe get bike lanes, or even, you know, have a designated golf cart lane somewhere. I know there's a lot of popularity on that. I'm not the biggest fan personally, but I think whatever we can do to help everybody enjoy our roads and sidewalks and be able to access the town the way they want is an improvement for everybody.
And Mr. Marie, your thoughts on sidewalk projects?
I think sidewalks would be wonderful. But again, as I said before, with the same question with the water lines, I think our priority should be the runoff, the excess of sewage coming off the mountain from overpopulation. I'm a lot more worried about the families on Green Gorge and Ravine and their kids swimming in contaminated waters where they could get E. coli than them tripping on a crack.
Moving on to our next question, and Mr. Gardner, we'll come to you first. Do you see any need for upgrading facilities and restrooms at the town's parks and playgrounds, including the town pool? And how would you go about getting citizens' input on their concerns and ideas?
Yeah, again, one of those issues that families are constantly seeing every time they go to a sporting event or town facility often is our bathroom facilities are in disrepair. Of course, not talking about here. The SMEPF folks have some of the best bathrooms in the town that they've built over there and done excellent work on. So, you know, for example, our baseball fields, those are probably in the best shape of the ball field bathrooms, but they are not in good shape. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We've just had consensus last meeting to potentially allocate over $100,000 to fixing those up, redoing them. I will say that I don't think that's going to cover it mentioned the pool specifically, and certainly aware of that issue. That's a much bigger project given the location and kind of you need to redo the whole kind of front of the pool facility there. So that's I imagine hundreds of thousands of dollars. So don't have the funding to tackle that yet, but hopefully we can build that into a longer-term plan.
And the second part of that question, how would you go about getting citizens' input on their concerns and ideas? Do you have an idea for that?
I get it every day in email. And anytime I show up at a ball field, I hear about it, which is great. Love getting that input. We know we've got a lot of work to do. A lot of things have been neglected for a long time. It's trying to have a good plan for picking off the pieces one at a time that are most important first.
Just keep it civil, right? Yeah. Mr. Jorgensen, your thoughts on the restrooms and also getting concerns?
So I believe the parks, the playgrounds, the ball fields, all of this, they're valuable assets to the town. They're just like the MAC, you know, each of these little, somebody I was talking to about this online called it amenities, and that's probably a good word for it. These amenities that we have in our town, they add value. They increase our property value. They make it more desirable to be here, and that's good for everybody. I feel like Andrew must have bribed the rest of the council before last meeting because a lot of his answers are, well, we just did that last meeting, and they did. They used a lot of ARPA funds to do a lot of really good things that address a lot of these questions. And I think based on that, we need to wait, see how far the money we've allocated gets us, and then stop, reassess, and figure out how to best spend our money going forward and keep pushing for that vision of, hey, we get everything where we want it, and then we have a plan to fund it going forward so that we don't end up in this same boat again. We need to learn our lesson and do better. That's all.
Mr. Marie, facilities and restrooms at parks, and also how would you solicit concerns?
Sure. Solicit concerns, same as Andrew, email. But as I was talking about before, raising the rate, specifically the bathrooms, especially raising the rates for the use of those facilities, raising the rates for the pool, raising the rates for the ball fields, so the citizens can pay for that. And don't forget, like I said before, there's a lot of people using our facilities that aren't Signal Mountain taxpayers. So to me, that is how I would handle the situation.
Mr. Smith, your thoughts on both of those issues?
Yeah, I was excited. I knew that Andrew and the ARPA utilization with those funds, those dollars are going to go a long way. So me being the fourth one to answer, yes, we need updates on bathrooms and other things. There's without a doubt. Sustaining going forward, how do we supply that? That's a good point, Miles, is how do we continue to do that? That's going to be the challenge.
And soliciting thoughts and ideas, by the way. That was the second part of it,
so I think
concerns and ideas.
I think what we're doing here, we need to expand upon that in multiple town hall meetings and hear from the citizens. You know, it can't be an unproductive session, but what are the things that are bothering us today within the community? Just point blank ask. These guys are going to tell you. They're not shy, and they're wonderful residents. So.
Further discussion there. Mr. Jorgensen, will come to you first on this one. The town currently faces hundreds of thousands of dollars in repairs to the pool. We've been talking about it many times tonight. We're going to zero right in on it now. It's approximately 50 years old. The question, should the town continue to operate the pool? If so, should the town continue to maintain the pool as problems arise, or pay for a comprehensive engineering study to determine what's needed to bring that pool up to date? Mr. Jorgensen.
So the pool definitely requires significant repairs. It's important to make informed decisions. I think we need to look at the long-term costs and benefits. I think a comprehensive study is very valuable because it tells us how to target and look at and improve what we're doing. We should look at alternative funding sources to help offset the cost of repairs and involve residents in the decision-making process through surveys or town halls or, engagement on social media. The pool's long-term sustainability should be a top priority for everybody up here. And we really need to look at regular maintenance upgrades. If it comes to it, potential replacement of the pool. I think regardless, this town needs a pool. Whether it's the current one, whether it's a new one, whatever the most cost-effective way to do that. But I think having that asset as a community is huge. And you can see that just every time you drive by and there's a swim meet and the parking lot there are cars lined down the street all the way to the convenience store. For the Giants, and my family, we get a membership every year. We definitely value it. We didn't use it as much this year just because we were doing other things, but the pool that's an asset the town needs and needs support going forward because it's part of who we are and part of our identity and part of getting us together.
Mr. Marie, saw you nodding your head in affirmative. The pool's important. Is it a patch job important or a comprehensive plan?
I don't think we need a comprehensive plan quite yet. But I would agree with Mr. Jorgensen that the pool is absolutely essential to the town of Signal Mountain. And with raising rates, if that doesn't cover it for the cost of admission, if that doesn't cover it, then it is definitely okay to use the tax base to help pay for the pool itself. Whether it be just upgrading it or eventually, if it needs to be replaced. The pool is essential to Signal Mountain.
Mr. Smith, your thoughts on the pool?
I'll disagree. I don't know if we need a comprehensive plan or not because I don't know that there has been anything published or a study of what's going wrong with the pool. So I think we've got to invest in some type of comprehensive study. Then we know how we can, and I use the term again, reverse engineer this thing to fix the problem. So yeah, we all know it's valuable. I didn't grow up with a pool, but I like it here. So yeah.
Finally, Mr. Gardner, on the pool.
Yeah, I think I'll address it in two different issues here. One's the current deferred maintenance, I guess we could call it, with the chlorinator and the filtration system, which we're close to critical failure at the opening of pool season this year. Chlorinator's already been replaced, utilizing ARPA funds, as well as filtration system is something that we talked about funding last meeting with ARPA funds. So, you know, again, those are Band-Aids. We need to have, what we need in a lot of places, especially as it relates to facilities, is more regular and better maintenance plans. And the pool is definitely an area that I think, you know, staff would tell you we didn't have that, and we didn't know how to do that. So it's something that they're working on right now, and we will have. As far as the actual facility itself, the other piece, I think, you know, we just relined the pool, I think, 2 years ago. So the lining should be decent. What we talked about with council is having a dye study done to make sure there aren't other issues in the water supply and filtration systems, which is fairly inexpensive. But when we talk about studies like that, you know, we asked the head of Public Works, what would a architectural plan cost to redo the bathrooms and the concessions area and all that, and it was, I think it was between $40,000 and $50,000 right there. So that was going to eat up pretty much all of the bathroom renovation budget just to have a set of plans. So it does need to be a longer-term focus, something that we're planning for. As we all know, it doesn't just need a facelift. It probably needs some major renovation there. Would love for it to get in a place where it's ready to serve the next 30 years of Citizens. So.
Further discussion on the pool? Yes, sir.
I'd just like to add to that. Thank you, Andrew. But if we're going to do that as well, it needs to be a comprehensive project. There's an amazing amount of water runoff that actually hits the town hall building and floods that building. So for those that play tennis or pickleball or any of those different things, I mean, as pickleball is growing, I can see many tennis courts being converted to pickleball courts. But the area where the tennis courts are as well, not entire area, we need to. I would add that we need to incorporate that as well. Just because of the poor design years ago.
Mr. Marie, we'll come to you first on the next question. What will your approach be to making potentially difficult decisions about important issues where citizens may disagree with each other, or where knowing your personal stance could put you at odds with some of your neighbors?
Study both sides of the issues the best that you can. Reach out to those people that you disagree with, and at least try to work out something. I think most of the time you're probably not, but you can at least try. And if after that you still feel strongly for what's best for the town of Signal Mountain, then that's the decision you're going to have to make. And if they disagree with that, then the heck with them. And if they don't want to elect you next time, then the heck with me.
Mr. Smith, your thoughts?
I think you got to hear both sides of it. I think that if elected, what is it that the constituents want? And I guess I continue to revert back to that. I may want one thing, and if we can have the dialogue to where we appreciate each other's perspective, that's fantastic. But we're still not always going to 100% side. But we can get along, and it's how you communicate that makes the difference. It's not the decision that you're making, but it's how it's done. And if it's done with respect and kindness and empathy, I think moving forward, you're going to. I've had many discussions where I didn't agree with a lot of people, but because of how we walked through it, hey, let's agree to disagree and still be collective and positive in how we go forward.
Mr. Gardner, constituent relations.
Yeah, great question. You know, we as council always want to hear and understand both sides of something that's contentious, and try to find the best solution. The beauty of what we were doing on council, though, as opposed to probably other political offices, and this is probably why I would never do another political office personally, is we're all rowing in the same direction. We all, we will disagree for sure, but we want the town organization, that's what we're in charge of as council, to be the best it can be for citizens, providing highest value services efficiently, and constantly communicating and understanding what citizens need. We can do that all the time. We can always agree. We can disagree on the ways to get there, but we're always going to agree on what our objectives are. And I think that's the same for all the citizens too that are complaining. They want the best from the town, and we want to provide that. So there's always that common ground. That's kind of a flowery answer, but it's very true for what we do here. The other thing I would just say is, as far as your neighbor disagreeing with you, what council can do to help with that, and we're not always the best, but I think we have really made an effort in the last 4 years to be the best, is to be the example of being cordial and respectful of one another when we deal with each other. I don't think there's been a screaming match since I've been on council. I may have been screamed at, but not between council members, so we can set the example of being respectful to one another.
And Mr. Jorgensen.
So making difficult decisions that involves disagreement among citizens is one of the biggest challenges an elected official can face, I think. My approach to handling that is based on some of the principles that are outlined in the book Good to Great by Jim Collins. I don't know if you guys have read that or not, but it's more focused on private business, but I think it has a lot of good lessons that also enter the public realm. And I think when you're faced with disagreements, it's essential to ask more questions and really understand what you're making a decision about. So if you bring all the stakeholders together, share information, foster a better understanding of the issues, and then you can make informed decisions. I believe that open dialogue, careful consideration, we can pursue the best interest of the community. And while there may be fundamental differences in beliefs among people, there absolutely always will be. It's important to strive for a clear majority consensus and then make the decision. As a representative, I will take my role very seriously and always strive to make decisions based on what's best for the community, even if that's going against my own personal preferences. I think that following these principles, following open dialogue, we can make effective decisions that benefit all of us as a whole.
All right. Moving on to our last question now, and Mr. Smith, we'll come to you. This is the last question that was pre-selected from online submissions. Mr. Smith, what's something unique about yourself, your life experience, or your career path you think will be beneficial to your service on the town council?
Again, raised by a female police officer, that wasn't the easiest thing, but one thing our mother taught us to do was to be a servant. Above all costs, be a servant. You may not always agree with what you're doing, but serve others. And that's one of the things, even being a vet within the Navy, getting through, you want to serve. And that's always been something that has driven me. Something that most people don't know. I love to hunt and fish, and I'm much more of a tree hugger, and I know that you know this, but my point is that it is preservation within our community, preservation within our world, our state. Those are the things that drive me, is that how is it that we are better collectively than we are as one?
Mr. Gardner, something unique about yourself that will serve you on the town council?
I guess my financial background is something that's been very important. So we have that financial lens on looking at it. The great thing about our council, and all 4 years I've been on, different folks, but everybody brings their own various areas of expertise. Current mayor's a lawyer, so he's got a really good legal background. I've got financial background, and others have really strong backgrounds in other areas that we need. So that's the beauty of the 5-person panel, and so I bring that aspect of really kind of probably annoying staff a little bit during budget time with very specific questions, but digging in and helping work through it with them. I think that's been a valuable asset.
Mr. Jorgensen.
A little bit about me. I worked at the 911 Communication Center, was hired by Chattanooga, did that for 10 years. It merged into the current Hamilton County 911 district. I did that while going through college, finished my master's degree in environmental science, and all of that has given me a good perspective on both public and private sector stuff. The environmental part has helped me understand the interconnectedness between the environment and us. I mean, one issue that we see, and I probably should hit on this earlier, is, contaminants in the Tennessee River. People flush birth control down the Tennessee River, or they drink caffeine, and our wastewater treatment plants are not made to help that or take that out of the water. So going back to the interconnectedness for the Walden, their stuff comes out of spring water. It's probably actually better water. Moving on, I've also had experience dealing with ISO standards, being audited, looking at stuff like that, and diving down and looking at continuous improvement and identifying the root cause of issues and trying to figure out solutions for that. I do that every day in my day job. I did it for 5 years in a corporate position over 70 facilities across the country for a Fortune 500 company, and now I do it for 2 facilities and both of those are multinational companies. I think my environmental stuff, really something that I'm passionate about is sustainability, and I think the town needs to adopt and strive towards goals to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. That's something I would like to push for, but I'm committed to doing that and finding a way to do that in a way that doesn't impose undue financial burdens on the community. I think that we can create and enhance the town in a way that thrives in harmony with nature, maintain a strong economy, and maintain a high quality of life. And I think we're already at a pretty good spot, but I think there's always, we can take it a step further and do even better, and that's what I want to push us for, is doing even better.
Mr. Marie, something unique about yourself that will aid you on the town council.
I have a history of service because I served my country in the military and served in Iraq. I have a history of financial competency and fiscal conservatism because I've been running my own business for the past 10 years. And I have a history of loving family because I got a 2-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl. And I really, really, really love the town of Signal Mountain.
We've come to the end of our questions that we had at the very beginning. It is just about 5 minutes till 4. This is Snowda. Can we give Snowda a hand? This is a labor of love for her. We're going to at least try one question here and be as brief as we can so we can get to those closing statements. All the questions that were collected are going to be sent to each of the campaigns, so hopefully they'll have some time to answer you in the coming days. And Snowda has copies of them as well if you'd like to see them. But we'll get to this final question, and I think it's time to go with Mr. Gardner first. This from the audience as they came in. How do you feel about bringing in more rental properties to the community?
I assume they mean residential in this case. I'm not in favor of it. I don't think the Planning Commission has any plans to permit or have areas where rental properties are specifically allowed. It's really an exemption right now, I think, under state statutes that the VRBO folks are kind of skating through. I think I imagine before I got on council, if we were able to, there would already be a rule against that. But we're not able to, is my understanding. So, not particularly in favor of it. If we're going to introduce a different style or type of community that's not this lovely suburban populated area, you know, half acre, acre lots, whatever, then it doesn't need to be just intermixed in the middle of what we already have. So that would need to be kind of a planned, specific thing, in my opinion.
Mr. Jorgensen, rental properties, additional rental properties in the town?
You know, I'm mixed on this. I definitely don't want that right next to my house. You know, we call that NIMBY, not in my backyard, when I was going through college. I don't know if y'all familiar with that term or not, but you know, there's potentially a place for it as far as another aspect of revenue for the town. But like Andrew alluded to, if we do it, we need to think about how we do it in a responsible way that benefits the community and doesn't disrupt what we have. I think at the end of the day, the highest priority is and the biggest value of this town, you know, places like this or Franklin or Brentwood up near Nashville is we do have that special characteristic and not a lot of places have that, and we need to nurture that and take care of that at all cost. And the other stuff, if we do it smart, maybe it's something we can do. I would need a lot more information about how that would work before I would get on board with it, but I'm definitely open to a dialogue.
Mr. Marie, your thoughts on rental properties?
I'm not open to a dialogue. Not only no, but hell no.
And Mr. Smith?
This one's a cross between property owner rights. I'm not going to be an advocate of it. If we went out and polled just about everyone sitting here and then another 200 residents, would they want that beside their home? No, they wouldn't. So it's not something I would support.
All right. As we get ready for our closing statements here, I want to tell you that this event is being recorded, and you can see that on the MAC website later this week. It will be posted. Also, we'd like to ask at the end here, after we get finished with the closing statements, and you have a polite round of applause there, if you'd give the candidates a few minutes to stretch their legs. They'll be setting up their independent campaign tables for you to come and say hi if you'd like to, get some of their materials and all that. Just give them a few minutes there afterwards to stretch their legs. I think we've got all of the announcements in there. Don't forget, next week, this very location, you can meet the candidates 2 to 4. That's Sunday, October 6th, federal, state, local. Also, if you need to register to vote, there's a way to do that right out front. The good people from Caleb are manning a table there and can make it happen for you. So now we'll get to the closing statements. And before, I want to thank all of you for being here. And once again, thank you, gentlemen, for taking part in this. We started from closest to farthest in the beginning. Let's go from farthest to closest. Now, Mr. Jorgensen, you have 2 minutes for a closing statement, if you'd like.
So I'm going to keep it simple. Thanks to the MAC, thanks to Greg, thanks to the other candidates for being here, thanks to all you in the audience for being here and taking the time. I know this is time out of your day, and you all probably have other things you could be doing, but you've chosen to be here and participate in the process, and that's wonderful, and thank you.
Mr. Gardner.
Yeah, first, just thank you to Snowda Hendricks for all of her work to put this together. Thank you to you for moderating, and the Grahams providing this facility and the ability for us to have these sorts of forums. It's wonderful. Just kind of reiterate what I said initially. I was talking with a friend last night who was like, "Are you a glutton for punishment? Why are you doing this again?" And I had to think about it, and I thought, well, unfinished business is what I would say. We've still got a lot of work to do. We've made a ton of improvements, town staff making that happen. But we're not there. We're not at a point where I feel like it's sustainable. A lot of more work to do on the budget and get these facilities and things. You know, at least we have a long-term plan to get them caught up and then maintained. You know, this is a family town. I think that's an identifying factor. It's a town that believes in conservation of our natural habitat here, the wonderful, wonderful place. As before, and I think while I've been on council, that's one of the things that I'll be concentrated on, fiscal conservatism and working through those efficiencies we need to, introducing new technology for staff and enabling them and providing better service to citizens as a result. I think still a big initiative for us. And the last one, and still near and dear to my heart, a big thing I really want us to get active with surveying citizens, getting that yearly touch point with every household, hopefully. And they feel more heard as a result. We get even more participation than seeing this great crowd out here today. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you'll consider voting for me.
Mr. Marie.
Yes, large thank you to the MAC. Appreciate putting this together. Signal Mountain is not Chattanooga. I love Chattanooga, but Signal Mountain is not Chattanooga. Signal Mountain is a family community. And let's keep it safe for our families. Let's keep it safe for our children. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you to everybody. Certainly appreciate all the resources, all the time. Really appreciate that. 11 years invested in a community within the Planning Commission, and we're not done. I mean, there's 1,000 things to continue to do, but I really appreciate your best friend and your sister and everybody else's support within the town. But it's we'll keep moving, we'll keep pressing on, and thank you. Really appreciate it.
How about a hand for all of our candidates here today? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to the MAC, thank you to SNODA, and say a little prayer for our friends and neighbors over in Western North Carolina when you get home tonight, if you would. Safe trip down and safe trip home, and we hope to see you again. Don't forget Election Day. Thanks very much.
Good to see you, Greg. Thank you. Hey, thanks, buddy. So did you. Absolutely.
Good job. Very good job.